there's a lot of benefits to using debt to finance investments into cash flowing assets, especially for taxes in the United States.
Right.
So let's hop into the end of week report, Colin, because there is quite a bit of content in here that I would love to discuss with the community. Can't wait to get rocking and rolling. Let me just make sure that I am in the right page here. Okie dokie. We go. Let's hop into it. So welcome everyone. Today, we're going to talk about the Bitcoin ETF frenzy, institutional investments into Bitcoin through these ETFs, and why I'm so bullish on Bitcoin here. Remember, we want to be greedy when others are fearful. And why is that? Well, because there are some new entrants into the Bitcoin ETF stage. The landscape is going to be welcoming these Hong Kong ETFs. So basically Chinese ETFs. These are going to start trading April 30th. So at the end of this month, we're going to see mainland China's Bitcoin ETFs begin trading. Now, that is a big deal. And if the performance of the Bitcoin spot ETFs in the United States is any guidance for what type of performance we could expect to see out of these Chinese ETFs, I really hope that it is. The United States ETFs garnered in their first month, over $10 billion in assets under management. So in China, with the yuan potentially being devalued, many Chinese investors are looking for ways to allocate assets, and they don't really have a stock market like we do. And if you follow the news, the Chinese real estate market is basically the only way that regular Chinese citizens can invest their capital. And if you've seen some of the debacles, building these massive cities in the middle of nowhere where they're completely empty, that is, a poor capital investment. But now, on April 30th in Hong Kong, mainland Chinese citizens will be able to buy Bitcoin. And the way that those ETFs are structured is just a little bit different than the way that the American ETFs are structured. But I still think that it's going to be a big deal because it means more institutional investment. It means more retail participation in Bitcoin. It means more inflows. And there is no additional supply coming online. So the supply of Bitcoin is what's referred to in economics as inelastic, meaning there is no extra supply on the margins. And right now, the only real supply is coming from GBTC, the only supply of any size anyway. And so as we watch these outflows start to decrease, I think we're going to see the end of this correction and eventually a sharp repricing higher in Bitcoin. And so I just want to take a moment and pause on Mr. Warren Buffett, who is a big Bitcoin bull, by the way. Just kidding. But Mr. Buffett says, he's referred to as the Oracle of Omaha. He says, be greedy when others are fearful. So when you see FUD in the news, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and when you see Bitcoin just kind of hovering above 60K, and you're preparing to make new investments into the crypto and DeFi space, just understand that we are laying the foundations now for the massive gains that we're going to reap 6 and 12 months from now. So we need to be in position. And as we see total net flows continue to be below the zero bound, so negative, we're seeing negative net flows, this is when I want to be thinking about buying BTC. So take a look at this here. This is a nice support zone. As long as BTC remains above this nice support zone, I am a buyer. And if BTC breaks below the support zone, man, load your bags, because I think that we're getting ready for a sharp repricing higher in Bitcoin. Now, what metric am I using? Which chart am I watching to gauge when it's time for me to really load up on altcoins, because I keep thinking about, what is the most efficient way to manage the fees that I generate from my cash flowing DeFi business? Well, what I'm watching is Bitcoin dominance, because I want to know, hey, when do I take all of the wrapped Bitcoin, all of the stables that I've been converting my fees to, when do I take that and really go and buy a bunch of alts? Well, when we see Bitcoin dominance break lower, like we did in 2021, when we start to see this type of a move, that will signal the beginning of alt season, which from my research tells me that post-halving, we've typically got about 180 or 200 days until the real start of alt season. So we're getting close, but there's still time to prepare and get in position in preparation for alt season, because we're not there yet. I think that there's going to be one more push higher in Bitcoin dominance. Now, what does that mean? Well, Bitcoin dominance, when it pushes higher, typically means Bitcoin is increasing in price, and or it means that alts are bleeding against their Bitcoin pairs, meaning these alts are not holding their value as well as Bitcoin. And the unit of account that I'm using here is US dollars. So when I say not holding their value, I mean their US dollar values. And so I'm definitely watching the relative outperformers against BTC. And I do know that this chart is difficult to view, but this is extremely important because I want to buy the best and leave the rest. So in traditional finance, that saying is buy the best, sell the rest. But in this case, you can't really short this stuff easily. So I just want to buy the best and leave the rest for alt season when it kicks off. So what's the best? Well, what are you comparing it against? For me, I'm comparing it against what I think is the best store of value, and that is Bitcoin. So which alts are outperforming BTC year to date? Well, we can see right here. Fetch, Near, Render, BNB, Solana. I just highlighted a couple of our most recent favorites, but what do these all have in common? Well, Fetch, Near, Render, all AI plays. BNB and Solana, BNB is a layer 2, Solana is a layer 1. These are the assets that are outperforming Bitcoin. So what does that mean? Well, I want to have a heavier allocation to the assets that are outperforming, right? That's been my investment thesis in this environment of Bitcoin outperformance. I want to buy the best and leave the rest. So let's take a look at the Bitcoin pairs of these assets that are outperforming, and let's take a look at their relative outperformance. So here's Fetch. This is outperformance. This is Fetch's Bitcoin pair. So this is Fetch priced in BTC, not US dollars. So this is significant Fetch outperformance. What does that tell me? Well, I want an allocation to Fetch because it is outperforming the market leader, which is Bitcoin. What's next? Near protocol, another AI play, also a layer 1. And what we see here is Bitcoin underperforming Near, or Near outperforming Bitcoin year to date. This is Near outperformance. What's next? Render, another AI play. Render is outperforming Bitcoin, and consistently so, with nice support below with this trend line. This is Render outperformance. And getting back down towards this trend line could present a nice entry point. Don't forget how well those Render pairs paid just maybe 8 weeks ago. Take a look at Solana. Solana outperforming Bitcoin here. And this is Solana coming down to support, bouncing off of support a couple of times. This could present a nice entry in Solana right here. Solana outperforming Bitcoin. It's basically since October. And one of my favorites now, BNB, because of this relative outperformance since the beginning of March in BNB against its Bitcoin pair. This is extremely important to understand because it helps us determine what to do with our fees. If you're in a pair where, yes, maybe long term you want to hold on to those assets, but in the near term, in the immediate term, do you want to see those fees that you're earning bleed against their Bitcoin pairs? Do you want to see those assets that you're earning, their US dollar value decline? Well, for me, I personally don't. And so what I prefer to do is take my fees and swap them for wrapped Bitcoin, or maybe swap them for Solana, or maybe swap them for ETH, or maybe even swap for stables. I want my fees to retain their US dollar value and to retain their Satoshi valuation. So that's why I'm so interested in looking at the outperformers against their BTC pairs. Let's pop in and take a look at the top 3 pools that we've highlighted for the next week.